Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talking About the Who. If you've been here before, and if you haven't, then welcome to Talking About the Who. My name's Paul Behrman, and today we're going to be talking about the new live album from the Who, Live at the Oval 1971. And to join me in this discussion is the guitarist in Who tribute band Who's Next, and author of this book that come out a few months ago, the Who album by album. That person there, Dante DiCarlo. How you doing, Dante?
Hello, I'm good, thanks. Thank you for the book plug. That's always appreciated.
That's okay. We'll probably do a bit more of a book plug after we've talked about this new album. But
Yeah.
because there's an important gig coming up, and if you've been listening to the podcast, you might be sick of me mentioning it, but it's just under a week away, so we're going to mention it at least one more time. But we'll come on to that. So yeah, Live at the Oval 1971 at the time of recording got released just over a week ago. Um, just to give a brief bit of the background behind this release. Um, so the tapes of this gig had been offered to the Who some time ago, but I think they'd actually turned down the chance to buy them because the quality wasn't up to scratch. And then when work was being done on the Who's Next slash Lifehouse box set, they discovered that the tapes had changed hands and managed to do a deal with the new owner of the tapes to buy them and release them. And because of technology these days, they were able to make the tape sound good. And I think that's kind of the basis of the release. I presume well, I know you've bought a copy, but how many times have you
Yeah.
listened to it?
I've only listened to it a couple of times really. I've had it on in the background whilst I'm doing other things, a couple of other times, but I've only sort of given it a full listen through a couple of times. Just had like a lot going on. So I haven't had a chance to go through it as carefully, and really sort of like pick the details out of it because it is quite handy also, doing the Who tribute. It is quite handy anytime a live recording comes out. It's quite useful to listen to it because you can just sort of like steal little things from from different versions to sort of keep what you're doing a little bit fresh by just changing it up, but taking something from an actual concert. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to like pick the details out of it yet.
Yeah, it's an interesting point actually, and I think you've said before how the Who never played the same thing twice in any performance. So anytime you get something like this, I guess it's going to be a bit of a surprise. There'll be surprises in there
Mm.
for even the most hardcore of Who fans because, like you said, it's never the same twice.
Yeah, it's what makes them exciting and sort of makes it worth buying multiple, live concerts.
Yeah, I have to confess as well. Speaking of the Lifehouse, Who's Next box set, I've not actually listened to all of it, which is
That's fair enough.
really really bad for a host of a someone who's making Who related content. But I just never kind of got around to it.
Have you got the super deluxe, the huge box set thing?
No, what I've
So
listened
what?
to has all been online. I've
Oh,
listened
okay,
to
yeah.
the San Francisco gig and the Young Vic gig, which I think I'd
Mm.
heard most of that before from the previous deluxe
Yeah,
edition. But no, I've not actually got a physical copy of the box set. So
it is. It was pretty expensive and everything. But yeah, I think when you buy, I mean, I probably got that and then listened to it online because just it's such a nice box set. If I can take opening it up carefully and taking the CDs out and everything, I'll do that. But when you do spend the money on it, you're kind of like, I better listen to this to get everything out of it. With all those box sets, though, I find like after a while, you kind of listen through to it once, and then there's not that much that you kind of go back to. Like there's certain stuff that I'd forgotten about when I was writing the book, and certain things that I'd forgotten about with other albums, like super deluxe versions that contain songs like Sell Out and stuff like that. And I thought, wasn't there a version of that? I can't remember. And then I had to go back and look on the box set. So yeah, there's some really good stuff on it, but I think yeah, the live stuff is probably the thing that's most worth returning to.
Yeah, and before Who fans shoot me down in flames, I do own the Lifehouse Chronicle, so I've got a lot of the demos already.
That's impressive because I missed getting that, and I've
Oh,
always regretted that. Yeah,
well, there you go. We're kind of maybe equal on that one.
even yeah.
Had you listened to any of the Oval concert before? Because this was my first time of hearing any of it with this new release. Had you heard any bootlegs of it or anything like that?
I had a bootleg, but it was an audience bootleg, so
Mm.
it's completely different sound quality. It's not only obviously you're saying that they weren't happy with the quality of the tapes, but this is not even the soundboard that was in not good condition. This is just like an audience um, cassette or something like that. And being that, it's just one of several gigs that I listened to because I used to collect a lot of Who bootlegs. I used to do bootleg trading with people, and I'd have a list, not just Who, but mainly Who. A lot of the other stuff that I had was there just so that I could get another Who bootleg of someone else. Like I'd go, oh, you've got everything that I've got Who wise, but I've got this Led Zeppelin one, or I've got this, whatever. So it was just like one of several gigs that I listened to because I had lots of audience recordings. Um, I did listen to, I found it again because I couldn't be bothered digging it out, but I found on YouTube someone had put the audience bootleg. So I did listen to that a little while ago when I knew this was coming out. But yeah, until I knew it was coming out, there was nothing sort of really special about that one because there's just so many Who bootlegs.
Mm. Yeah, and it does kind of show you this new release how far we've come with technology because I think, and it says in the liner notes that really good liner notes written by Andy Neal that the recording was actually quite difficult because I think it was something to do with the security not letting sound engineers back on stage once bands had started or something
Mm.
along those lines. So it probably could actually sound even better, but for what it is, it does sound pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think it's a well produced live recording that sort of captures the Who well.
One thing that's quite interesting, I've got the vinyl. I'll show it in a minute. I've only listened to it once on vinyl. The rest of the time has been streaming, but I had to turn up my stereo quite loud to actually. I was listening to it on headphones, but I had to turn the volume up quite loud to be able to hear it at the volume I normally listen to records, which I thought was not necessarily
Okay.
a problem. I thought it was quite
Hmm.
interesting.
That sounds like it's been mastered quite low in volume. I haven't actually even, I've got the vinyl as well. I haven't actually listened to it on vinyl yet. I just I streamed it at midnight as soon as as soon as it went up on Spotify, and then I got the copy the next day, well, the day that it came out. But I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet because I got a problem with my stereo. The amp has kind of gone, so you
Hmm.
just get like crackling through the speakers. And I still buy vinyl, but knowing that at the moment all I've got to listen to it really is one of these like little portable, terrible, um, terrible sounding with the inbuilt speakers.
Yeah,
So it's not really worth listening to it. I will get my amp replaced or fixed or whatever. But yeah, I hadn't thought about that on the streaming. I guess it's probably mastered differently because
yeah,
vinyl generally has to be mastered in a different way. So yeah, that's interesting. That I wonder
yeah.
if it means that there's sort of more dynamics in it and stuff, and it's not been sort of crushed as some of the mastering is in sort of last 30 years, really.
Yeah, quite possibly, or it could be my hearing's getting worse because I haven't got great hearing anyway. But
Yeah.
years of rehearsing without wearing earplugs has done that, I think. But yeah, it could just be on the way out, but let's hope not. But yeah, speaking of the vinyl, let's quickly show it. Now this is quite divisive. This cover, I think, and
Yeah, I,
and
I was going to say you should probably start off with the cover.
yeah, because I was gonna get the CD originally because I thought I don't know. I kind of think vinyl in the last maybe year or so has started to feel like a little bit of a rip off, and I really don't like the
Mm,
fact that records get released onto discs, for want of a better word, because of the heavyweight nature of it. And it almost feels like it's a it's an excuse to charge more. I think you could easily
Yeah.
fit a whole album onto one piece of vinyl and still have it 180 grams or whatever. So I've kind of, as much as I love vinyl, I've kind of been put off buying brand new vinyl recently. But the reason I went for the vinyl is because I love the cover, and I know you're not so keen on it. I think a lot of people aren't particularly keen on it. There it is for
I
anyone who
wouldn't
hasn't seen
I
it.
wouldn't say I'm not so keen. Overall, I really like the cover. The one thing that I was, but you cleared this up. I was just confused about the girl in the center of it. Like I like the
Yeah,
full pictures of the band members, but I was like, but what's the girl got to do with it? That just feels like a random sort of thing. But then you told me the story behind it.
yeah. So an inside source, shall we say, told me the story behind the picture. So let's show the girl in the middle there one more time, which I think maybe is the thing that a lot of people aren't keen on. I mean, I really love the color scheme as well. That's mainly the reason I really
Yeah.
like this cover. Just I think the whole design's really good. But yeah, an inside source told me that the girl is based on this image. This is in the booklet of this couple. Let's see if I can get that clearly on camera.
Mm.
This couple who are actually at the gig, and were photographed by a guy called Colin Laurie. Checks notes. Yep, Colin Laurie, who was just a freelance photographer, and Richard Evans got in contact with him, knowing that he'd taken all these photos, and Colin Laurie sent Richard Evans some photos, and that was one of them that kind of stuck in Richard Evans' mind, and he had the idea for the woman on the cover, but kind of having a combination of the two. So she's wearing his glasses basically.
Yeah.
And I think Richard Evans talks about this on social media. But and she's in like an oval shaped egg type thing. So obviously the oval and everything.
Yeah.
And you got the big oval what is it? It's the thing that's near the oval. I can't think what it's called.
Um,
That big thing. There's a
I
picture of
don't
it in
know.
the booklet.
Yeah.
Um what is it called? Someone's probably screaming at the screen right now, but that thing
I
there,
don't know actually.
that big thing that's near the
Oh,
oval.
right. Yeah. I
We'll
don't know
call
what it's
it
called.
the big thing.
Yeah, it's a
And
big thing.
yeah, so
Yeah, overall, I do like the cover, and it's Josh Townsend that did it, and he's done several bits of artwork on the tours and stuff like that for like posters and stuff like that. And I always thought his stuff is quite eye-catching and
hmm,
sort of a bit psychedelic. You know, it's interesting. It's not. I don't like stuff where it's really boring. I mean, particularly in terms of like t-shirts and posters and merch and that kind of stuff. And he definitely does stuff that's eye-catching. So I like the cover. I was just really a little bit confused about the girl in the middle of it at first.
yeah. Well, for anyone else who might be confused, hopefully that has cleared things up if you didn't know the reason for it. But yeah, Josh Townsend did the design. It was well, Richard Evans had the idea, and Josh
Mm.
Townsend was the one who illustrated it. I have seen someone online saying it's AI generated. It's not AI generated. It's human beings have done this, these images. Um, and interestingly, my inside source told me that originally Roger didn't like the cover because the girl, I think she looked a bit too modern. So they kind of had to make her a bit more 1970s. Even though it's
Yeah.
based on a 1970s picture, they had made her a bit too modern. And
Ah, okay.
apparently Roger
Yeah.
didn't like it at first. Pete was happy with it. Um, but yeah, then there were a few more ideas for the cover, but that was the one that just seemed to work the best. So
That's actually interesting because I'd sort of been under the impression that stuff like this that comes out now, that kind of Pete and particularly Roger wouldn't sort of care that much about. You know, it's to the point of actually sort of saying, oh, I don't like the artwork or something.
yeah, I think from what I can gather,
Mm.
they've got to give the okay to the whole thing basically.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Andy Neal for the podcast recently, and he was saying how yeah, Pete and Roger had listened to it, and there really is nothing to be embarrassed about at all because it's Such a great
Yeah,
performance. Just want to show this as well for anyone who hasn't seen it. I'm not going to go too much about the artwork, because a lot of you probably do have this, but for anyone who hasn't, that's such a good picture on the inside.
yeah.
Let me get it on camera. I'm not quite used to this whole showing vinyl on camera and know which way to like angle certain
Mm.
things, but yeah, as I said, it's got. Have you read the liner notes?
I had a sort of brief look through them. I haven't read them um properly.
Yeah, it's just they're really good. Just tells the story of the gig and everything, and yeah, it's really interesting. Um, and a few like accounts of the day, like Richard Barnes, Pete Townsend. Pete says he got very drunk, which is quite obvious from the actual the actual audio, but we'll come on to that. That's a
I
good pic.
mean,
That's a good
what a
picture.
surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great one, yeah.
And there's one other. Just I'll show one more. Oh, that's a good picture. That one. I'll show that one. The with the red tint on it.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
That's just Pete about to throw his guitar onto the floor, as is his wont. And that was a bit about the recording process that's quite interesting as well.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the artwork.
Yeah,
Um,
and you've got the standard black vinyl. I've got this is where we differ. I got the sort of blue and pink splatter vinyl, which you're not a fan of.
I hadn't actually made a note of that, but yeah, we should talk about that. So yeah, let's just quickly show the record because
Yeah,
you've mentioned it. There we go.
and
I only show one now.
I'll
The
get my hang on, I'll be back.
label. There we go. Yeah, I'm not a fan of splatter vinyl really, so I'd much rather get it on black vinyl. But yeah, let's have a look at the splatter
By
design.
the way, if my camera keeps moving, it might look a bit strange. It's got this automatic thing on this laptop where it tries to center you in the picture. So if you move around, it kind of recenters you. It's quite strange that it does that, but
It does feel like you've got someone there who's actually filming you at the
yeah.
moment.
So yeah, the splatter vinyl will be yeah. So this unusual, which I don't know. I
I,
quite like sort of different vinyl,
I've
different
got
colored vinyls and stuff.
I've got to be honest. Now I've seen it, it doesn't look too bad. I just think my default setting is oh no, not splatter, no,
Yeah,
but it actually looks all right.
yeah, something a bit different.
I don't regret getting the black vinyl, but yeah, I could if it was just if it was only a splatter design, I could have lived with that. I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so let's talk about the actual the audio. What are your overall thoughts of the album?
I think it's a good album overall. You can definitely tell that Pete's a little bit drunk, and they've left. There are mistakes in there that they've left in there, which is which I'm glad about because that's the Who.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure if it's like still think probably San Francisco is a slightly better overall live record. And it does feel kind of weird because everyone's sort of been waiting for these sort of 1971 live gigs, and then you've sort of had, the full um, Young Vic released, which most of it had been released before, but then you've got San Francisco, and then you've got the Oval as well.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of strange how it's all come about at the same time. So I do think it's a really good album. I'm not sure whether because San Francisco's been released pretty, was it last year or something? So it's maybe, not had the impact that it would if it was just this and San Francisco hadn't been released. But there's interesting stuff on there. Like there's a few songs where I think there's really good versions.
Yeah,
So yeah, overall, I'm glad they released it.
I mean, I think it is one of those sort of seminal Who gigs, isn't it?
Mm,
From what I can gather, but it's quite an interesting choice for an official live release because I mean, I'm thinking of things like when you get a new Hendrix live album, it does feel like they're trying to make it as commercially accessible as possible, and they'll even change the order of the songs as they happened on the day or the night, and they'll chop certain songs out, which I don't like. But I want an album to be completely warts and all, and
Mm,
that's exactly what this is. Nothing's been altered. There's no, I don't think there's any pitch correction on Roger's voice or anything like that. And there's quite a lot of out of tune guitars on this, but
yeah.
it's really nice to have a completely warts and all live album. But I guess also surprising that because it is really warts and all, that it's actually been officially released. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I did think that. It's a sort of thing where with San Francisco, I mean, I'm not sure what I think it is. It has been released now as a separate as a thing on its own. But it initially came out as part of that Who's Next Lifehouse box set. And this feels like that kind of thing where I would have expected them to release this as part of something else rather than a standalone release. At first, I did think it was just going to be because I think someone said, "Oh, it would just be a thing directly through the Who.com, or it'll be a fan club release or whatever."
Hmm.
But it's out there. It's on Spotify. It's on the streaming sites, and yeah, it does feel like if you picked it up, you'd be a little bit. If you didn't know about the Who, you might think, "Oh, there's a lot of mistakes on this." Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, what would a modern day audience who doesn't isn't familiar with the Who, what would they make of this?
hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to ponder.
And what's interesting as well, I mean, this is a little bit more inclusive of the Who hits, but still, because it always used to make me sort of laugh that obviously Live at Leeds is the number, their best album in most people's opinion, their best live album, and a lot of people would say the best live album of all time, and I
Mm.
wouldn't disagree with that. But if you get that album, if you're like, okay, I'm going to get this live album by the Who. Even if you get the expanded version, I mean, the original version only had 6 tracks on it, but even if you got the expanded version, there's still like no Won't Get Fooled Again. There's no Barbara O'Reilly. There's no Who Are You. But particularly, Won't Get Fooled Again and Barbara O'Reilly, those are two of their biggest songs, and they're not on it. With this, you've got Won't Get Fooled Again, but you still don't have Barbara O'Reilly, which I think it is on the San Francisco one by that time they were doing it. But again, for that reason, I would have thought, they would have maybe gone with San Francisco for the sort of the big kind of live release, and this maybe would have been the bonus on the box set. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just speculating, but because and this is from what Andy Neal told me on the podcast
yeah,
that they discovered while making that box set where the oval tapes were. Maybe
yeah,
they
so
just couldn't. I think it was quite a drawn out process to actually
yeah,
buy
so
them.
they didn't have it
So
at the
maybe it was a
time.
case of we want another live gig on there. Let's put San Francisco on there.
Yeah,
But otherwise,
yeah,
what you
yeah,
say,
that makes
yeah, what
sense.
you
Yeah,
say would make perfect sense otherwise.
yeah.
And interestingly as well, it's the song's available if you for you to put on your Instagram story. So it's kind of feels
Okay,
like it's being pushed, quite
yeah,
commercially for want of a better expression. But
yeah, that is interesting because there's been a few sort of quite well known, popular Who songs that I've tried to use for an Instagram story, and it's not on there. Can't remember what it is, what they were, but yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and that's an interesting point you raise about Barbara O'Reilly because I did look up to see has it been taken off? Has it been like did they play it and it's been removed or
Mm.
were they supposed to play it but they ran out of time? But I think it turns out they weren't playing it at that time, and it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting that they hadn't got round to playing it. Maybe they didn't feel confident enough. I mean, they had Won't Get Fooled Again with the backing tape. Maybe they just felt two with a backing tape was a bit too much at that time.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because they like you said, they were using Won't Get Fooled Again with the backing tape. And then they're also playing Love Ain't for Keeping live.
Mm.
So you would think out of the two songs they would go Barbara O'Reilly is obviously the banger more than Love Ain't for Keeping. Maybe at that time they kind of thought, nah, does this work live? Or be interesting to know their reason for not playing it until later in the year.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. And
But the
no,
sorry, go
sorry,
on.
no, go on.
No, I was going to say the Who have always been quite weird with their song selection live, though, because there's just tons of songs that were like singles and popular songs that they either didn't play live or they dropped very, very early. So, you know, maybe at that point they did think, oh, are we going to play this live? Or maybe not.
Yeah, because I know towards like 75, 76, they'd become essentially a greatest hits band, but
Mm,
it's not as if they hadn't tried to put other songs in the set list off the top of my head, however much I booze, and then
yeah.
quickly dropped it. It does seem like they lose confidence in a lot of songs very quickly and just
Mm,
end up with, I guess, the easiest songs like your Pinball Wizards. Won't Get Fooled Again was probably just ingrained at that time. They could play it, just like that.
yeah.
And
But we were talking on the on the members room about the I think I said it's an interesting thing of when bands hit the period of where the audience doesn't want any new stuff anymore and they just want the hits because bands go through that thing of you release an album, release a second album, and then at a certain point it gets to the point where the audience goes, oh, not something new. um And I said it's weird because bands in the old days, they changed so much as a band that you would have been forgiven almost for someone who was a fan of The Who in 1965 to have sort of listened to Tommy even and gone, no, I don't like that. Just play the old stuff. Just play My Generation and Can't Explain and, I'm a Boy and that kind of stuff. But it seems more the other way around when bands now sort of release one album and they live off that first album for the majority of their careers because the fans get bored of them after like one or two albums. But you look at The Who and they were like initially, had all these singles, but after about 1970, they weren't doing, I mean, obviously they kept Can't Explain, Substitute, and My Generation. Everything else really went until, I mean, you had I'm a Boy and Happy Jack until around 1970, and everything else went. But you got like Kids All Right, they chucked that out the set list pretty early. Pictures of Lily, I Can See for Miles. I don't think there's even any decent recordings of them doing that when it came out. There might
mm,
be some really bad audience bootlegs that I think I have heard, but they pretty much dropped that when it came out. Even into the 70s, they didn't do Let's See Action very much. They didn't do The Seeker very much. They didn't do Joint Together. Um, so they had all these songs that were like popular singles or like big tracks that they wouldn't play live. So maybe at one point, Barbara O'Reilly was in danger of just not getting played.
yeah, I think we've got sort of hit on a whole new idea for a video. But it's funny how I think it was Pete in particular who kind of complained about the fact they'd become a greatest hits band, and yet, why drop The Kids Are Alright? Why drop
Yeah.
Pictures of Lily? They can't be that difficult to play.
No, I mean, I guess with those songs, they maybe just didn't suit the style of the band anymore. I know I find it hard playing those songs in a set with the other stuff that's more 70s. It always feels a bit of a weird kind of jump. But
I don't know because I'm thinking now, imagining Pictures of Lily from a 1975 perspective. I reckon it would really work. I really
I
want to
reckon
hear
they
it.
could have done it, yeah. And I think I Can See for Miles could have been, I mean, I know it has loads of vocals on it that they couldn't have replicated fully, but they could have done a three-part harmony like they, did on, say, See Me, Feel Me, where you got like really good three-part harmonies on that. And it would have been a really, loud, aggressive track to do. They could have really done something with that live, but they just seemed to
Hmm.
drop it. And then later on in their careers, when they were doing, like I said, Let's See Action comes out as a single, they didn't really play it live. Joined together, they would sort of put it in that jam with My Generation. It's not really the same song. Uh, yeah, and they had all these singles they were releasing and going. I mean, there's hardly any versions of The Seeker. There's a few in
Mm.
1970 of audience bootlegs, and that's actually what I would really like to hear. I would really like to hear a live album, even if it was just pieced together from different albums, but of a really well, like a soundboard version of songs that there are no versions of, like The Seeker, hear them do, I don't know if a soundboard version of that exists. I would guess that stuff that's earlier than sort of like 1969 is going to be difficult to find a recording of.
Yeah, like a sort of Who's Missing but a live version.
Yeah, because in
That,
75 as well, they started to play Heaven and Hell again for a little while, for a few gigs.
oh, really?
I've got a bootleg, I think it's Manchester Bellevue, and they play Heaven and Hell on that. And yeah, it'd be cool to have. Yeah, Who's Missing, a live Who's Missing would be great.
But not an AI generated thing, like the actual
Yeah,
soundboard recordings. Yeah.
yeah.
Although I'm tempted to do some sort of AI. Can you play Pictures of Lily as if the Who were playing it in 1975?
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
And you mentioned the members room. In case you don't know what that is, if you go to patreon.com/ talking about the Who, it's something that's exclusive to our members. And for just £3 or $3 a month, you can sign up and get access to that. So, yeah, just to get that in there. But yeah, let's talk about some of the. Let's go through it track by track. Uh, actually, that's one other thing I did want to mention about the overall album is that, and we're talking about songs that weren't played and everything. But one thing I really found interesting about this album is that at the point where it is in their history, it's that transition point between the Tommy tours, where they basically had become that was like their springboard to stardom, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And but also at the point where they've started to play Who's Next, and we can go a bit more into this when we talk about each song, but it feels like they're still finding their way with that material, like those songs that are going to become absolute bona fide classics.
Mm.
It's just a really interesting transition point, where they really are trying something new, and yet stuff like Pinball Wizard at this time is probably one of the nice, easy songs to play because they've been playing it for the past however many years on tour.
Yeah. And I do feel like Who's Next is like a massive leap forward in terms of a lot of things, in terms of songwriting. I think all the stuff that Pete wrote for the Lifehouse project in terms of songwriting, he's like on a different level from writing Tommy, which was like a few of the songs were, a little bit twee and a little bit sort of just filling in the gaps
Hmm.
and the stuff that he wrote, in 70, 71, this incredible stuff. And like John as a bassist and Roger as a vocalist gets, shoots into a different level. And so, yeah, I think it's quite a big change.
I guess after those Tommy tours in '69 and '70, their confidence must just have been sky high when they were
Yeah.
working on Lifehouse, and
Yeah.
obviously it never came to fruition. But from a songwriting perspective, yeah, you're right. It kind of is on another level, isn't it? I mean, Tommy's amazing, but you know, Lifehouse kind of is something else.
Yeah. For me, Tommy still feels like not kids, but, sort of like young people in a studio messing around and sort of like, and sort of trying stuff. And Who's Next and all the stuff from that period feels like the masters of their craft, just,
Yeah,
just like fully matured.
yeah, I think you're right. Actually, yeah, that's a really good point. Um, and speaking of songs that hardly ever get played, did they ever play "So Glad to See You Again"? Track one on this album.
Yeah. I don't even know what, I mean, I'm gathering it's just, I think it says in the line notes, doesn't it, that, they probably just warming up to test the PA because they weren't using the same PA that the rest of the bands were using. They insisted on using their own, which is classic Who style. They provided the PA at the Isle of Wight Festival in '69 and 1970 for all the bands. And I don't know what happened with this one, whether they just didn't want to provide it for everyone or they weren't allowed to set it up earlier. But there was apparently a gap between the Faces and the Who so they could set this PA up. And it says, I'm not sure if it was in, I read it somewhere, it might have been in the line notes, that apparently Rod Stewart could be seen walking off, sort of like muttering disgruntledly, in a disgruntled fashion under his breath, because the Who sounded so much better with that PA.
Yeah, it was a brand new PA. I think they just bought it from
Yeah,
America as well, and it was the
yeah,
first time they were using it. But it kind of does bring to mind Nigel Tufnell. Like, nah, it can't be played. Don't even look at it. You can't use our PA.
yeah. So,
Um,
yeah, so it seems they were just testing it out with a jam at the beginning of the gig.
but without John, because I think there was something obviously he had to sort out with his bass rig. But
Yeah.
what's it's the word I tend to say quite a lot on these videos. It's the word interesting. But what's interesting about this song is that it's credited. The songwriting credit goes to Roger Daltrey.
All right. Okay. I didn't actually notice that. That's
Yeah,
funny.
so it's like the See My Way, Here for More, So Glad to See You trilogy is now complete
That's really interesting. So after all these years, Roger's got a credit on another Who song.
on a new Who album. Yeah,
I hadn't actually thought about that. I mean, technically, that is a brand new Who song from
yeah.
1971, but it's a brand new release, never before released Who song. Do you reckon though? Do you reckon it was something that Roger maybe had come up with in like the studio or a sound check or something like that, or he just started singing that day and Pete thought, I'll give Roger the writing credit.
I mean, it kind of sounds like it's off the cuff because the way
Yeah.
Keith sort of doesn't quite come in on the beat, if you see what I mean. It's kind of like, oh, I'll just join in, and then
Mm.
I mean, maybe I had worked on it. I don't know, but
I just thought it would have been when you were saying the writing credit. I thought you were going to say it's credited to the whole band, but
see, that
that's
would have been the
interesting.
first ever Who song credited to the whole band, wouldn't it?
I think the Ox is well, it's probably not credited to Roger Daltrey though, is it?
No, I think
Because
it's
no,
Townsend, Moon, Entwistle, Hopkins.
Nicky Hopkins, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, you're right there.
but yeah,
I think
Rogers now has three writing credits solely to his name.
that's very interesting. Yeah, got another writing credit after all these years.
So do you reckon who's next are going to cover So Glad to See You at the next gig?
It would be fun to do that. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's not very long. It shouldn't take very long to learn it. But oh yeah, Roger Daltrey.
Yeah,
It's funny.
interesting choice, but oh, fair play.
1 minute 5 seconds. It shouldn't take long to learn that.
Yeah, that's definitely one for the hardcore, isn't it?
Yeah,
The one that sort of five people go, oh, okay, that's interesting.
yeah,
Um, and then interesting again, as that word interesting. Interestingly, it's not Can't Explain. That's the first song, the first proper song. It's Summertime Blues. Um,
yeah.
and I just want to give a shout out to Chris Charlesworth because he sent me his original review for Melody Maker in 1971, writing about this gig. So thanks a lot, Chris. That's very much appreciated. In his review, it says hits the audience full in the face at the very start, which I think is
Mm.
it's a perfect way of putting it. But I think this and track two, which is My Wife, those two together is a really good opening 1-2 punch, if you like.
Yeah, they do hit you pretty much, straight away. You know, um, two really good live tracks. I enjoy playing both those tracks live,
Mm.
and yeah, it's interesting as well that that yeah they go obviously they right from the early period they're doing My Wife as well as one of the Who's Next tracks. I do think it's a great live track right through their career. Obviously, that was kept in the set for most of the rest of their career up until John passed. Boris came back a few times, but I think it's one of their best sort of live tracks. I think.
And I think there's an argument to be made on this album that it's probably the one song from Who's Next that sounds the most polished, if you like.
Yeah, I
Um,
think
I,
so.
I mean, it's slightly different compared to later versions in that Keith is playing the main rhythm on the toms, I think, rather than on the ride cymbal. But
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds really good. But yeah, this seems like I said, a lot of the songs it feels like they're still finding their way with the new material. But My Wife does sound like they're there
Mm.
already with it. And
It's a great sort of jam, and I think yeah that sort of way of playing on the toms when the San Francisco think, audio came out, Mike, our drummer, started playing it more like that. That sort of it's got a kind of heavier, stodgier, sort of meatier groove to it,
Yeah,
and
because
I do like that.
when I saw you guys at the Cavern, I noticed he was playing on the toms. I hadn't heard the
Yeah,
San Francisco gig at that point, so I thought, oh, that's an interesting choice,
yeah,
but it makes
yeah. We
sense.
both listened to that and thought that sounds quite cool the way that's being played. It's sort of it has a sort of a heavier weight to it.
Hmm.
And Pete always plays a lot of really good guitar on My Wife. It becomes a bit of a jam. I find with somebody with like Heaven and Hell as well, Pete plays, really good guitar on it. So quite a lot of the John tracks, Pete seemed to sort of enjoy jamming on them. And yeah, I think that's probably one that they tried out early on and found that they just got to grips with it really well as a live track.
Yeah, I think My Wife might actually be my favorite song on the album. On this album, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's the highlight.
Hmm. Yeah, it'd definitely be one of mine. Um, I think it's always a good live track and it's a good version of it.
And I've not looked at other set lists from this period, but I did wonder if they were starting with Summertime Blues and My Wife as opposed to Can't Explain and Substitute, because they were a bit longer and it was maybe two good songs to play at the start again to test out the PA.
Yeah, I haven't looked at other set lists around that time. Obviously, for a while in '71, they were opening with "Love Ain't for Keeping,"
Mm.
um, but I hadn't ever really. I mean, I'd listened to the Oval thing before, but I didn't remember that they opened with "Summertime Blues." And I think when I first heard the Oval, I just assumed that they'd switched the order of the songs around on the tape or something.
Yeah.
And some of these, some of these recordings, you don't like the first song's missing anyway. Obviously, can't explain later, so it wasn't missing. But I thought, it's probably just switched around. But yeah, probably didn't last too long. But yeah, I might give that a look later.
Yeah, and you mentioned "Love Ain't for Keeping." That's the third song, and it's that rockier version that's similar to the record plant recording with Leslie West that's on the deluxe editions and the version
Yeah,
they were playing at the Young Vic. But I like the fact they'd kept that rocky version for the live gigs as opposed to the nice acoustic version on the album.
yeah, it does work a lot better. Um, it's interesting for me as a guitarist as well, because before when because we put Love Ain't for Keeping in the set quite maybe at the beginning of the year, before the Who started putting it in their sets again, so they copied us. Um, and the version that I was always going off was the Young Vic version. And Pete's solo in that, he kind of plays something completely different. And on these, I think on the San Francisco one, and definitely on this one, he kind of plays a solo that's pretty similar to, or it starts off pretty similar to the record
Yeah.
version, the album version. So now I've listened to that, I'm like, maybe I should play it like that instead of the Young Vic one, which is completely different.
And I was
Um,
thinking as well, it's got, I don't know if you're familiar with Mountain, the band that Leslie West was in.
yeah, a little bit.
And
I've got their first album, I think.
I was thinking it sounds a bit like a Mountain song, but I don't know if that's because I've just got Leslie West in my head because it's a similar
Okay,
version
yeah,
to that record plant version, but it's got a
yeah,
bit of a Mountain feel to it. Um,
yeah. The record plant version's great.
yeah. This is also something me and you talked about the other day. The great debate about whether Love Ain't for Keeping ends with a G, as in the word keeping, the spelling of it. Does it end
Oh
in a
yeah, yeah,
G or should it end apostrophe? Sorry, yeah, N apostrophe. But on the album, on this album, it's with a G. And I think you said
yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be spelt.
yeah. On Who's
Is it
Next, it's like that. But recently, when it's been mentioned on, the band putting the song back in the set list recently, in articles, it's been spelt with an N and an apostrophe. And on setlist as well. But I did see a setlist from their most recent gig. I just saw it today. Someone put up a picture of a setlist from Madison Square Garden, and it was spelt with a G on the end. I know this
Okay.
is really boring to most people, and they're like, "Why the fuck are you? Why are you on about how it's spelled?" So some proper Who fan sort of like pedantry, you know, nitpicking.
I'd like to think it's
But
the great love hate for keeping debate. Is it with an
yeah,
N apostrophe or is it with a G at the end? I think we need to be discussing this sort of stuff. And didn't you say they spelt, or you saw a set list that had Barbara O'Reilly spelt wrong, an actual Who set list?
for a while the Who set list was spelling it. People putting up pictures of the set list, and it was spelling it Reilly instead of Riley.
Yeah.
Um, but I just pulled up the set list for other shows. So the show after that Oval one was Manchester, and there's no set list for it, handily. Damn it. Uh, there doesn't appear to be a set list for a lot of these ones. Blackpool, no. Try and get my. I have got the concert file book somewhere, but it doesn't list every. Liverpool. Liverpool was listed in October, and that starts with I can't explain, and
Yeah.
then substitute. Yeah, more usual lineup of songs.
You're right though. It does feel like Can't Explain and Substitute have been swapped just for the just for the album, but this is in the genuine order, and
Yeah.
it's weird not having Can't Explain and Substitute as the first two songs, but it kind of works the way it is, and it also makes sense that they're about to play three songs, three big songs from Who's Next. And as we've said, they're
Mm,
still finding their feet with them. So it makes sense that Can't Explain and Substitute are probably two perfect songs to warm themselves up to
mm.
those. The tricky stuff in the middle, as Pete Townsend describes
Yeah.
the typical
Yeah.
Who set list.
Yeah, that was the kind of thing. You start off with a few early hits, and then you do the difficult stuff, and then you do a few more hits at the end as a reward for being good.
Yeah.
Um, it is funny to see some of these earlier set lists as well, where you can see sort of like Won't Get Fooled Again sort of in the middle of the set list. And I had a thought, not about the gig, but just in terms of who's next in general. The other day, I was listening to the album on the bus coming home, and I thought it's a really weird thing that like that opening bit of Barbara O'Reilly. Not only did the Who, they were using this thing, which is actually an organ, but it sounds like a synth. It's an
Hmm.
unusual sound. But not only did they introduce it on that album, but it gets introduced on the first song of that album. And it's a long time before, it starts to sound like the Who because you have that builds up for ages, and then you've got the piano that comes in, the bass, the vocals, and the guitar takes ages to come in. I mean, that's quite a bold move to go. We've got this new sounds nothing like the Who that you've heard before, and we're opening the album with it, and you're going to listen to this for about a minute before the band comes in. I mean, that's quite ballsy to do
Yeah, it's a really
that.
good point, especially like you said. I'm not sure there's anything sounded like that in 1971. I mean, it's almost like the start of an electronic song, isn't it? Like you'd hear nowadays.
It's crazy. And I mean, if you were your last Who album that you bought was Tommy, and the last Who single was probably The Seeker at that point, and then you put that on, and that's the first thing you hear. It must have been, quite surprising for Who fans to have stuck that on. Been like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud now. I wonder if doing Overture at the start of Tommy had kind of given them the confidence of starting with something a little bit different, because that's in itself quite different, isn't it? Starting an album with an overture, a rock
Yeah,
album.
yeah, it's like a long instrumental thing. Yeah, it's quite unusual.
Yeah, really. Again, that word's really interesting to consider this
Yeah,
stuff. But yeah, the three Who's Next songs in a row, Bargain, Behind Blue Eyes, and Won't Get Fooled Again. Um, I think Bargain's a really good version. It's a nice jam at the end.
yeah. It,
Uh,
it's it's good to hear that because I used to listen to the Young Vic version, and I enjoy that, but it's a bit still finding their feet on that. Like
mm,
with Keith sort of switching on that version between playing half time and playing, like he sort of like slips into the halftime feel of Pete's demos
mm.
occasionally for a little bit and then kind of speeds up. But it sounds a lot more together, a lot more played in. Um, yeah, and I think that's again that's one that always sort of suited them really well live.
Yeah, and yeah, I think they definitely are finding their feet. It does sound like for those three songs, they're having to think about what they're playing. They're not
Mm.
ingrained in the way we're probably used to hearing them as live versions, especially Won't Get Fooled Again. Um, a good example of that is on Bargain. I think it's after the or towards the end. Is it in the middle? Either in the middle or towards the end. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it sounds like Pete starts singing the synth part that's on the original, but then but it's kind of off mic, and he's almost like, I'm not
Yeah,
sure if I should be singing this or not, and he just sort of gives up. And you can only just about hear it, but yeah, again, it's that interesting transition between the Tommy tours and this whole new show, I guess, all this new material from Who's Next, and
mm.
yeah, they're not quite, maybe not quite 100% comfortable playing it at the moment, and it is very much that tricky material in the middle for this gig.
Yeah. Just sort of get through the Who's Next stuff. Some of it's a bit more successful than others, but yeah, it's funny because we always when we do Bargain, I sort of sing that synth bit. But yeah,
Mm.
it does seem to be something that they never really did after that.
And one thing I love about Won't Get Fooled Again is that the backing tape is so distorted. I haven't even quite figured out like the volume that should be played at.
Yeah, that's funny because if they wanted to, they could have probably if they had. I mean, even if they didn't have it on a separate track, if it was on the same track or something, they probably could have used AI to take it off and then reinsert it like a clean version of it because it's always going to be the same length. And even if it wasn't, they probably could stretch it a little bit. But they decided not to do that. They just left it the
Yeah.
way it was. Yeah.
And they've also left in the fact that when the band all come back in after that second synth slash organ interlude, they all come in at different times.
Yeah.
And I think it might be John comes in at the right time, but everyone else comes in at a completely different time. So Roger
Yeah.
screams at the wrong point, Keith comes in at
Yeah.
the wrong point.
Yeah, I think Roger comes in first and he comes in too early. Then sort of Pete probably panics and comes in with the guitar, and then Keith comes in at some point. I think definitely Roger comes in first. I can't decide who's
Yeah.
at the who's the next one to come in. Um, and then it goes wrong, and then you hear Pete play a bit of lead guitar, which is massively out of tune, and you hear like the note. I think he's tuning the guitar
Yeah, yeah.
back up because. Again, I was saying in that recent members room episode. Um, one thing you don't with the audio concerts is that you don't get the visual thing of what's happening. So sometimes, something might be happening, and that time Pete might be windmilling, or he might have when that scream happened. Who knows what happened? He might have done a knee slide or something, knocked his guitar out of tune. Like you can't tell these things because you can't see what's going on. So. I have a feeling he did something at that moment and knocked his guitar out of tune and has had to tune it back up.
Yeah.
And on the audience bootleg, you could faintly hear that, but you couldn't really hear it clearly what was going on with the guitar. But this is so clear.
That's one thing about the album as a whole. There's a lot of instances where it sounds like he's a little bit out of tune.
Yeah.
And is it because I mean you've heard more Who bootlegs than I have, but another thing about this gig, he does sound very drunk, and I'm not sure I've ever heard him sound this drunk at a Who gig. Is that part of it? Do you think that he just keeps going out of tune, but maybe doesn't care because he's so pissed?
Probably, yeah. Even when he introduces Won't Get Fooled Again, he sort of shouts, "This is Won't Get Fooled Again!"
And he's before Behind Blue Eyes, he's talking about, oh, I'm going to chuck my guitar to you at the end, and then he goes, pick it clean. And I was just
Yeah.
wondering, what's he talking about? What pick the what, dry blood off the guitar? Or
I don't know. Yeah, it's quite unusual.
I think, but he sounds the most drunk before. I think it's before "Baby Don't You Do It," where he's just going, "Enjoy yourselves, enjoy yourselves." literally sounds like he's had about 10 pints of lager and he's just walked out of the pub on his way to get a kebab.
Yeah.
Just enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think Charlton 74, he's very drunk on that. So it could be, I
Yeah.
can't decide which one he's more drunk in.
Yeah, he is quite
Probably.
pissed on that one. But I think,
But
I don't know, I was just slightly taken aback with just how drunk he is
yeah,
at this gig. But yeah, it's funny ultimately. But
yeah.
and speaking of tuning a guitar, I don't know if it's retuning it, but there's a great bit in Naked Eye towards the end of the album where he's playing the intro. I think it's on Naked Eye, and there's just a sudden few seconds where it sort of goes on the guitar. But as he does it, John stops playing and then comes back in, and it sounds rehearsed. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
the bit I'm
it's
on
kind of
about.
yeah, I think it's kind of like a slide down the strings, which sounds quite good. I don't know if he's using the mic stand or something to slide
Yeah,
down the strings on it. It is a yeah, it's a good moment. And I noticed with that as well, which I haven't really noticed with other versions of Naked Eye. Maybe I just never spotted it before, but it's that he seems to be playing it in drop D because the bottom E he's got like a low D that he's playing, so he seems to have tuned the E string down to D. And I was like, oh yeah, because I've thought about maybe doing that before. There are on the record, the recorded version of Overture, he's got it in drop D, the acoustic guitar. But then I don't know if he ever did that live. But it's a good way. So I'm thinking, maybe I'm going to try that live, tune that down.
I am wondering though, was it intentional? Was he so drunk that he's just got it tuning completely wrong? But
Yeah, I think it is intentional because he plays some riffs where he's like hitting an F to an open D, but it's on the low E string, and it sounds good.
yeah,
But I've thought about doing it before, and then I've thought, but how would I play the G chord? But he seems to be that he's not actually playing the low note of it. He's just letting John play the bass, which why not?
yeah. I guess when you have got John Entwistle as your bass player, you
Yeah,
can get away with not not
yeah,
necessarily playing the low string on your guitar. But yeah, Naked Eye is another highlight of the album, I think.
yeah. I think that's a good version. Slight thing is that he leaves before he sings. Before I think before Pete sings his verse, he leaves like an extra bit of a gap. And when it happened, it
Yeah, that's right.
also the first "Don't happen that way at all." No one sing. Roger doesn't sing that. It's just dead silence,
Yeah,
and there's no singing over that bit. And then Pete comes in with his vocal a little bit later. So again, I wondered if they just sort of forgot that Pete for maybe was a bit drunk and forgot to start singing his bit.
yeah,
Um,
maybe. And I think there's a little bit in bargain towards the end. Where I think it's just Pete, but I think he sort of plays a particular
mm,
chord for for almost half a bar too long or something like that.
yeah,
And I think the intro of "See Me Feel Me," there's a bit of a he like mishits a chord at one point, and there's lots of little things like that in it. But
mm,
it really is a warts and all performance. But it's great to hear though. It's
yeah.
so glad they haven't tried to tidy a lot of this stuff up. But it's not to say as a whole the album does sound great. It's a strong performance.
Mm. Yeah, and Naked Eye, they've been playing, for quite a while by this point. So again, I think it's really well played in.
And there's that word interesting again, but interesting that no one in the audience would have had a clue what this song was unless they'd seen the Who live before.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point because they were doing obviously Naked Eye sort of came out of jams on the Tommy tour, and then by 1970 they played at Isle of Wight and stuff. But making just made a new album. It's not on the album, but they're still playing it because I
Yeah.
guess they know it's a great live track, but it's sort of missed a cut on Who's Next and never
Mm.
it ends up on odds and sods. But
And I think you make
yeah,
the point in your new book that it's something kind of lacking. I don't know if that's the right word on the studio version of Naked Eye, and you can kind of understand why it hadn't been released
mm,
at that point.
Yeah, I've always preferred the live versions of it. It's funny because our drummer Mike sort of really loves the studio version of it and says, no, no, that's the definitive version for me. And it could just be because I heard probably the Isle of Wight version before any other versions, and that's quite different as well because it doesn't have Pete's verse in the middle, just has a guitar solo over that bit. Um, but yeah, for me, the studio version it doesn't have the same sort of aggression, doesn't have the same punch. It's got the keyboards in there which make it kind of a little bit sort of take the firepower out of it a little bit, I think. And yeah, I think it works better as a live song. Um,
Yeah. I think my definitive version for a long time was the version on the 30 Years box set from the Young Vic.
yeah, I like the Young Vic version. I always sort of went with that as my go-to version, I guess, because it's the full song, but it's played really well.
So let's quickly rattle through a few of the remaining songs, so we can try and get this video in as close to an hour as possible. But yeah, we've got "Baby Don't You Do It," um, and there's a bit in the one of the verses that sounds very similar to the real me. Have you picked up on that?
Um, yeah, it's kind of good because I think with that he's playing a lot of the same chords, and it's got a capo on three, so it's in C. It's the same thing as playing in A, like A, G, and D with a capo on three. Um, so I think there's a lot of similarities with the riffs. He probably like I now that you said that, I wonder if when he wrote the real me, he was just messing around playing "Baby Don't You Do It" or something, and just
Yeah,
sort of
and it's that whole that verse. There's no guitar; it's just drums, vocals, and bass, and the bass is following the like a call and response
yeah,
vocal. But all of a sudden, it really hit me like bloody hell, that's the real me. So it's almost
yeah, that's a good point actually.
like the birth of it in a way.
Mm,
Um, we get Pinball Wizard and See Me Feel Me. Pinball Wizard, just got to say, the bass on that intro, fuck me.
yeah,
What is
it's
that? Is that like an overdrive pedal, or has he just whacked his bass up for that bit, or
I don't know. I thought about that because
it
I don't
feedbacks
think
to
I
fuck, doesn't it?
yeah, I don't think he was using any pedals in those days, so it might have just been the amp crank because I did think that and thought that sounds absolutely monstrous.
Yeah, that's
I
that's
mean,
the word.
yeah, it sounds like it's been put through like a distorted guitar amp or something like that. It's yeah. In fact, going to say, well, I'm going to listen to Max next time we're playing that, and I might say, actually, you need just
Yeah,
add a bit more distortion to that.
yeah. Max, stop pissing about. We need to crank the bass on the intro.
This needs to knock me out.
Yeah, proper Back to the Future moment.
Yeah.
We got See Me Feel Me, which I think is another highlight of the album for me, and I'd say it's probably comes close to equaling what I think is probably the ultimate version. That's the Woodstock version.
Woodstock, yeah.
I think it's got a similar vibe to that, and
Mm.
yeah, it rocks. And then My Generation, Naked Eye, and Magic Bus, where I'd heard for years that Keith played cricket bats at the Oval gig, and I can never quite get my head around how that worked. But I think it's on Magic Bus, and I think it's towards the end. It's just a few
Mm.
sort of cymbal washes. I don't know if you can actually tell from listening where he does it, but
Yeah,
that,
it would be nice to know, but I heard he sort of gave it a try very briefly and then gave up and lobbed the cricket bat into the crowd or something.
yeah, apparently it was a very expensive cricket bat that the
Yeah.
MC for the day, Jeff Dexter, had been given by the Surrey County Cricket Club, and he was a bit upset. Apparently.
Yeah. I mean, um, give the cricket bat to Keith.
Yeah, or
What's
have
going to
it.
happen?
Yeah, have it in his vicinity.
Yeah. Or, yeah, I'm surprised that Pete Townsend didn't pick it up and smash it. So don't want to leave that stuff around the Who. Come on, let's face it.
And there's a great bit at the end where I don't know if it's Jeff Dexter or is it Ricky Farr who was involved with the event comes on and says, "Oh, as you can see, an encore is impossible. There's drums all over the place." So I think Keith had literally walked through his drum kit at the end of the
Yeah.
set, and Pete had throwing his guitar into the crowd, and a brand new guitar apparently, and yeah, someone took that home probably with a cricket bat. Um,
Yeah,
are any final thoughts on
that's
the
funny.
album you want to share before we bring things to a close?
I'm trying to think if there's any other notes that I made. Um, Magic Bus is quite a long version of Magic Bus. It's quite funny on some of these versions. Just the sort of ad-libbing makes me laugh. Like the ad-libbing on San Francisco made me laugh, and on this you got Pete sort of going, "I don't want no Yankee dollar. Just give me that LSD,"
Yeah, yeah, that's
which
it. Yeah.
should explain to people that it was pounds, shillings, and pence in those days, and it was the symbols for those was LSD. The L was pounds, wasn't it?
So I wondered what he was talking about, and
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
yeah. LSD was money because LSD pounds, shillings was S, and pence for some reason was
Ah,
D.
because I think this is the
I think
year
that's
that
what it was.
I think it's the year decimalization came in. So
Yeah, 71. Yeah.
it's probably a big, big news at that time and a big
Mm,
talking point. Because I thought he can't be talking about the drug. That just seems a bit random.
yeah.
But
Yeah, it's talking about the currency, English, pound, sterling. And
oh,
they
there you
always
go.
seem to have this ad-libbing on it on the San Francisco thing where it's just like, "Hey, Mister, oh me," and he's doing it in a funny voice.
I mean, you could totally see why Pete enjoyed playing Magic Bus as equally as you can tell why John hated playing it because it
Yeah,
literally is 8 minutes of A until like it kind
yeah,
of, Keith sort of kicks in with the drums and everything. But
yeah. And when it does kick in with his goes like thunder and pit scraping in it really does kick in
yeah,
quite hard. It's a good version. It is long. I mean, you got several Naked Eyes, obviously long. Baby Don't You Do It's quite long. Um, so you can see why it's not that many tracks on here, but obviously, and I mean, saying about the double album things with this, I guess you probably have to have this as a double album,
I was
but
just
there are
saying,
certain albums that I do agree with you that albums that were single albums in the past that get reissued on sort of double vinyl,
yeah,
and
that's what annoys me. I should clarify with this album. Yes, it's a double album, so I've got no
yeah,
issues with it. But when you get single albums from the past that get split onto two discs because
yeah,
of the heavyweight aspect, I see that as a bit of a rip off personally. I could be wrong. Maybe
mm.
they can only fit sort of two or three songs on the side, but it feels like a bit of a rip off to me.
Yeah. I think the heavyweight vinyl is a bit of a con. The grooves you don't have to have that heavyweight vinyl to still make the grooves a bit wider and still produce a good sounding record. At least that's what I've heard from people that know about this sort of stuff. I don't know that much, but
No, that's it. But as an album for anyone who's still on the fence, I would highly recommend buying this. I think it's yeah, it's the Who warts and all, but
yeah,
As Andy Neal said on the podcast, the Who's warts are particularly good. So
yeah. I think it's really good for it's got Who's Next material on there. Won't Get Fooled Again obviously goes a bit wrong at the end, but up until that point, I think it's a good version. Even with that, that's fine. And you got
it's a unique version, I think, which is nice.
yeah, and you got some really good, like jamming and stuff on, Naked Eye, Baby Don't You Do It, My Wife Bargain.
Mm.
Um, and then you got a bit of Tommy in there as well. I would say, yeah, I'd still probably put San Francisco slightly higher, particularly the fact it's got Barbara O'Reilly on it. But I'd say yeah, it's definitely worth grabbing.
I think that's a fair assessment. So before we go, because I've talked about it quite a lot and people might be sick of hearing me talking about it, do you want to give a plug to the 100 Club gig?
Yeah, will do. So yeah, my band Who's Next, Who tribute band, are playing a gig at the 100 Club on Thursday, the 4th of September. Uh, we'll be sort of doing a late book launch for my book, which I'm sure Paul's about to show you. It's that one. Thank you very much. The Who album by album, which does kind of what it says it does. I'd sort of just go through Each studio album, I don't do the live albums mainly because I didn't have enough word count to do that. Um, and I feel like if you review a live album, you're reviewing a performance. There's less to talk about. Like you don't have the background behind the writing of the album and the writing of the songs and all that kind of stuff. Um, but we're having copies there. You can buy a ticket to the show from the 100 Club website. You can buy a ticket with a book,
I'll,
or we will have some copies of the books there while the stocks last.
I'll put a
You can
link to
buy.
the tickets in the description of this as
Cheers.
well.
Thank you. And we've got support from the Hornets, who are like a really good young modern R&B kind of band. And we've got a little bit of an interview, which is hosted by Paul, and just talking to me about the book. And yeah, it should be a good night. It's a legendary venue. You see pictures on the wall of people that have played there, including Pete Townsend, and he's on stage jamming with like Keith Richards and Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton and stuff like that. So it's a great venue. So yeah, anyone fancies that, it would be great to see you at the event. It'd be so good, so great to see you. So good to see you.
So glad to see you.
So glad to see you. We should open with that actually.
I wonder if we now owe Roger Daltrey royalties for saying that.
Maybe.
But yeah, really looking forward to the 100 Club, and hope to see a few people there. Be nice to see some friendly faces. Thanks for joining me today, Dante, to talk about Live at the Oval.
Thank you for having me on.
Good luck with your future endeavours and all that.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Yeah, let's end it there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.